Long ago, there lived a poor orphan named Uma. She was strikingly beautiful, but had nothing to her name, wandering the streets and surviving on the kindness of strangers. Uma had lost her parents in a car accident 10 years earlier, when she was just 6. Since then, the streets had become her home, sleeping under bridges, beside street lamps, and taking whatever small job she could find just to survive. One night, something happened that would change her life forever. It was a calm evening like many others when Uma met an old woman who offered her food. Starving and grateful, Uma accepted. She sat in a quiet corner and devoured the meal like it was her last. It was delicious, far better than anything she'd had in years, and she ate past her fill, not knowing when she might see food again. Full and exhausted, she stumbled to her usual sleeping spot and drifted into a heavy, dreamless sleep. When Uma awoke, everything had changed. She found herself in a strange shrine, tied up alongside several unconscious girls her age. Panic surged through her as a man dressed in ritual garments, the shrine's juju man, entered. His eyes widened in shock when he saw her awake. "Impossible," he muttered, pointing at her. "The spirits reject this one." Without explanation, he ordered her release. Uma didn't wait to question his decision. She ran. Barefoot, terrified, and shaking, she plunged into the darkness of the forest. Her clothes tore on thorns, her feet bled on stones, but she kept running, driven by fear she couldn't name. Finally, she stumbled out onto a lonely road just before dawn. The sight ahead stunned her. This was no ordinary place. It was a quiet, upscale part of the city she'd never seen before. Mannequins stood behind glittering display windows, dressed in luxurious clothes. The air smelled of wealth. As Uma caught her breath outside one boutique, a tall, elegant woman stepped out. "You like the dresses?" the woman asked warmly. Uma nodded shyly. The woman smiled and gestured for her to follow. Inside, Uma was led to a changing room and handed a gorgeous dress. "There's a shower inside," the woman said kindly. "Clean up and try this on." Hope blossomed in Uma's chest. She rushed to bathe and, moments later, slipped into the dress. When she stepped out, the woman clapped her hands. "Perfect," she said, her smile widening. But before Uma could even ask what was happening, a large man appeared. Without warning, he jabbed a needle into her neck. Everything went black. When Uma woke, she couldn't move. Her limbs were stiff, her face frozen. She was standing behind a shop window, dressed in gold, posed like a mannequin. But she was alive. She could see, hear, and feel, but her body wouldn't obey her. Panic flooded her mind. That's when she realized a horrifying truth. The other mannequins were alive, too. Their eyes told stories of pain, fear, and silent screams. They had once been girls like her, homeless, wandering, hopeful. Now they were trapped, cursed to remain motionless, their beauty used to lure customers. By day, rich women shopped, sometimes tapping the glass and admiring the lifelike mannequins. By night, when the boutique closed and the lights went out, the curse loosened just enough for whispers to pass between the trapped souls. That's when Uma heard the first voice. "New girl," someone murmured softly. "Don't fight it. The curse only tightens if you struggle." Another voice, faint but clear, came from her right. "We were once like you. Street girls, looking for a better life. Now we're part of Madame Cadau's collection." Uma couldn't turn her head, but she listened, frozen in her perfect pose as the voices continued to tell their stories of lost childhoods, broken dreams, and a fate worse than the streets she had once called home. She used to dance at traffic lights, hoping a few coins might fall into her hands, hoping that anyone, would notice her and save her. One day, a car stopped. A woman stepped out. She looked kind. She handed Nick some bread and malt and offered her a place to sleep for the night. For the first time in a long while, Nick felt hope. That night, the woman dressed her in a silk gown and asked her to model it in front of a mirror. Nick twirled once, smiling at her reflection, and then everything went dark. When she woke up, she was standing stiff and frozen in the window of a boutique. "They said I had the perfect body for display," Nick whispered bitterly. "But I would have given anything to be seen as a human, not a decoration." Beside her stood another mannequin. Her voice was soft and broken. "My father sold me," she said quietly, "for a bottle of gin." Uma's heart tightened as the girl continued. "I was the brightest child in my village. I wanted to be a teacher. But after my mother died, my father drank. He became violent. Then a strange woman came to the village and told him she would take me off his hands. She gave him money and that crate of gin. I begged him not to let me go. He didn't even look at me. They told me I'd be a maid in the city. I was 13. I never saw the sun again." From the far corner of the boutique, another mannequin finally spoke. Her posture was elegant, her voice calm and cold, like someone had forgotten how to cry. "My name is Victoria," she said. "I wasn't poor. My parents own a pharmacy. I had school, comfort, love, until I met him." She paused. He was older, charming. I met him online. He said I was mature for my age, called me his queen, sent me gifts, promised marriage. I believed him. I snuck out one weekend to meet him, and I never made it back. He brought me here to Madame Kadu. I was the first, the original mannequin. They used me to lure others. If I could be trapped, anyone could. Uma listened, her chest tight with fear. Each of these girls, now flawless mannequins, had once been full of life. Some were stolen, some betrayed, some sold by the people they loved. Now they were art, silent and motionless, their humanity hidden behind perfect smiles. "Why me?" Uma finally whispered through clenched teeth. Victoria's voice was steady. "Because you are beautiful. The more beautiful you are, the more value you bring to the boutique." Uma's heart sank. "How do we escape?" she asked desperately. Victoria shook her frozen head. "There is no escape. Once the spirit binds you to the coffin, your soul is sealed." The words hit Uma like a stone. Her throat tightened. She couldn't move, couldn't even weep. Each day she stood by the glass as wealthy women tapped on it, admiring her dress, admiring her stillness, never knowing the pain behind those eyes. But on the 7th night, something strange happened. A single tear rolled down Uma's cheek. Nick gasped. "You cried?" "We've been trying for months to cry, but none of us could." Victoria's voice turned sharp. "The coffin didn't claim you fully. That's why you can weep. You're not fully bound. There's still something alive in you." Uma's heart raced. Could it be true? That night, while the mannequins whispered around her, she focused on herself. Something stirred. Her index finger twitched. Just a little, but enough to send a surge of hope through her. She kept trying. A second finger. Then another. Warmth spread to her hands. For the first time in days, she could move. By morning, Uma stood perfectly still, her secret hidden. But when a group of shoppers stopped to admire the golden dress, one woman gasped. "Wait, did that mannequin move?" Uma's fingers shifted again, slow but deliberate. "It's alive!" the woman screamed, pointing as a crowd gathered, pressing against the glass. Phones came out. Voices rose. "And Uma, once a silent figure, look at her fingers," someone shouted. "She's pointing." "No, she's crying." "My God, she's crying." Another voice rang out. And it was true. Fresh tears streamed down Uma's cheeks, cutting clean paths through the makeup on her mannequin-like face. Her fingers twitched and trembled, flexing as though fighting invisible chains. A crowd gathered quickly, pressing close to the boutique window. Shocked and curious, they pushed through the doors demanding answers. Madame Kadu greeted them with a calm smile. "Relax, everyone," she said smoothly. "What you see is no ordinary mannequin. She's a special import from China, an advanced model. She can move and even cry. It's the latest technology, very expensive." The crowd hesitated, confused but intrigued. "She cost me a fortune," Madame Kadu added with a smirk. "Crying mannequins are the newest trend." The tension broke. People laughed nervously, apologized for commotion, and even pulled out their phones to take pictures. Uma's heart sank. She had hoped someone would break the glass, help her escape, but instead they believed a lie. They admired her, not as a girl pleading for freedom, but as a novelty, another spectacle. By evening, When the boutique closed and the lights dimmed, Madame Kadu sat in her office, swirling a glass of wine. But her calm exterior hid the anger brewing beneath. "How could I have missed it?" she muttered, eyes sharp. She called for her bodyguard, the same man who had pricked Uma's neck when Needle the day she was captured. "She's dangerous," Madame Kadu said coldly. "Take her off display. Move her to the back before she ruins everything." Minutes later, heavy footsteps approached Uma's glass stand. Strong arms lifted her stiff body. She tried to scream, to fight, but her muscles wouldn't obey. Only her fingers twitched, pinching at his arm, but it made no difference. The other mannequins watched helplessly, their frozen faces hiding racing hearts. "Where are they taking her?" Nick whispered, her voice tight with fear. The man carried Uma into the back room, a stark contrast to the glamorous boutique. It was dark, cold, filled with broken mirrors, discarded mannequin parts, and several coffins. Some were sealed. Others bore faint scratches on the inside. Uma lay helpless on a metal table, staring at the ceiling as dread clawed at her chest. Moments later, Madame Kadu entered, wine glass in hand, her expression hard. "You foolish girl," she snapped. "Do you know what you've done? Do you want to destroy everything I built? I had plans for you, Uma. You could have been my masterpiece. But now," she snapped her fingers, as the bodyguard stepped forward with a syringe. "Get rid of her," Madame Kadu ordered. Turning away, Uma's heart pounded. This was it. She closed her eyes and prayed silently, thinking of her parents, imagining their faces, preparing herself for the end. But then a scream shattered the room. It wasn't hers. It was Madame Kadu's. Uma's eyes flew open. The bodyguard had turned, plunging the needle into Madame Kadu's neck. The woman crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Uma stared, stunned, as the man hurried to her side. He held a small vial to her lips. "Drink this," he said urgently. The liquid burned as it slid down her throat, but almost instantly, warmth spread through her body. Sensation returned to her arms, her legs. She could move again. "WH, why are you helping me?" Uma stammered, her voice trembling. The huge man's face was lined with guilt. "I owe you the truth," he said quietly. "It's my fault. Your parents. I killed them." Uma froze, staring at him. He continued, voice heavy. "Years ago, your family's car swerved to avoid me. I was just a boy, chasing a ball across the road. Your father tried to save me. He turned the wheel too sharply, and the car hit a tree. It burst into flames. They died instantly. You survived. I was there. I saw you lying unconscious. I saw the mark behind your ear, the same mark I recognized the day Madame Kadu brought you here." Uma's throat tightened, words lost. "My name is Chimi," he said. "I became her guard to protect my family, but I have watched too much evil here. I can't do it anymore. I couldn't let her destroy you too." Re in a window, moved again. Over time, fear turned to numbness, and numbness turned to obedience. But the day arrived, something inside Chimi cracked. It was a mark behind her ear that shattered the wall he had built around his guilt. Chimi was the reason Uma's parents were dead, and he could not bear to see her suffer, especially knowing she had already lost so much because of him. The accident had haunted him his entire life. He had been just a boy that day, chasing a ball into the road. Uma's father swerved to avoid him. He still remembered the flash of Uma's mother's terrified eyes before the car spun out of control and hit a tree. The flames, the screams, those memories never left him. His own mother had told him it wasn't his fault, but guilt gnawed at him. When he saw the birthmark behind Uma's ear at Madame Kadu's boutique, it all came rushing back. This homeless girl, this trapped soul, could have lived a completely different life had her parents survived. And now she was about to become another silent mannequin because of the very man whose mistake had stolen her family. Chimi couldn't allow it. Saving Uma, even if it cost him everything, was the only way to silence the guilt that had consumed him. So when Madame Kadu ordered her spirit-binding ritual, Chimi gave Uma the wrong injection, just a numbing solution instead of the paralytic that would seal her fate. It fooled everyone into believing she was fully under the curse, but it left part of her soul free. That was why Uma could still cry. That was why her fingers twitched on the seventh night. That was why she could still feel. As Chimi confessed all this, Uma trembled. Her breath came in sharp bursts as sensation slowly returned to her limbs. "We don't have much time," Chimi urged. "Go. Get help." Without hesitation, Uma ran. Barefoot, in a torn golden dress, her face streaked with tears, she burst into the nearest police station. The officers on duty stared, startled at the sight of this wild-eyed girl, who looked as if she had clawed her way back from the dead. "Please," she cried, gripping the counter, voice breaking. "The mannequins, they're alive. They're girls. She's trapping them. You have to save them." The officers exchanged uncertain glances. "Young lady, calm down," one said. "Which boutique?" "Madame Kadu's," Uma pleaded. "Please, I swear I'm not mad. I was one of them. She turned girls into mannequins. Please, you have to come now." Whether it was a raw conviction in her voice or the desperation in her tears, something struck a chord. A senior officer stood. "Get the team," he ordered. Moments later, armed officers stormed Madame Kadu's boutique. They found her unconscious on the floor of the back room. The mannequins remained frozen, perfect and still. But as soon as Madame Kadu regained consciousness, she was forced to reverse the ritual. One by one, the girls stirred, coming back to life. What the officers discovered was worse than they imagined. Rows of broken mirrors, discarded mannequin parts, coffins lined with strange carvings, shelves filled with shoes, clothes, and broken phones belonging to missing girls, some gone for years, journals with names, syringes, evidence of rituals. Chimi knelt on the floor, hands raised, confessing everything. Madame Kadu tried to justify herself. "You don't understand," she hissed. "I made them beautiful. They were nothing before me. Homeless, filthy, unwanted." A female officer struck her across the face. "They were children," she said coldly. The case exploded across the nation. Headlines screamed, "The mannequins were alive." Human rights groups interviewed Uma. The boutique was sealed off. Madame Kadu was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Chimi was arrested too, but because of his testimony in the rescue of more than 32 girls in similar conditions across the state, he was granted clemency. As for Uma, she was finally given a home, an education, and therapy. But more importantly, she was given something she had been denied for so long, a second chance at life. The story carried a message. Even in the darkest places, light can break through. Hope, no matter how fragile, is powerful. Uma's tears, small, silent, almost invisible, became the crack through which truth spilled and injustice destroyed. It was a reminder that people are not possessions. The girls trapped behind glass were not mannequins. They were daughters, dreamers, survivors. Evil often wears elegance, and not everything that glitters is gold.